I'd like to
You
call
need agenda,
to order
Bettye?
the City of Joliet City Council meeting for June the 9th, 6:30 p.m. here in the council chamber. Mayor Robert Overkirk is presiding. We will have invocation by Councilwoman Harris. Actually, we will be there in the bed.
Okay. Oh, then it was over there.
We ask everyone to stand.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If we could all bow our heads so we may pray. In these challenging and turbulent times, it's a time that we need to come together. And it looks at times that we do and other times that we don't. And through the grace of God and the Lord Jesus Christ, through his precious blood, we can come together. Whatever your faith is, whatever your belief, we can understand each other, we can talk with each other and not at each other. And as a community here at Joliet, in the state of Illinois, in this country and in this world, it's more important than ever that we do come together, that we solve problems together, that we reach out in friendship to each other, that we look for the strength to do what's right. That applies to those that are elected officials, such as ourselves here today, or any other elected officials. That applies to community leaders, but that applies to every citizen, because we are a country of 340 million unique and different individuals who, again, as I said before, need to come together. So with that in mind, I would ask that we all ask God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ to give us the strength to move forward as a family of people and support each other doing the right thing. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor,
Yes.
could we just have a moment of silence for
Yeah.
County Executive Larry Walsh, who passed away last week? Thank you.
I'll begin with roll call. Mayor Overkirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Lovren.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon did call. She had a medical procedure today, so was unable to make it. Councilman Turk. First on the agenda tonight is a proclamation honoring Robert Long.
I know Robert Long is not here, but his family had a gathering for him for his 95th birthday outside, and the mayor was kind enough to give me a copy of this, so we were able to read it out loud to all his friends and neighbors. And he's 95 years old, and he stood and saluted everybody. It was really, really a sweet moment. He was just taken back by it. So, he was just 95. Whereas Robert Long was born on May 27, 1925, to John and Agnes Long, Robert was the 8th of 9 children and is also the last surviving child. He has lived in Joliet since the age of 2 when his family moved here from St. Louis, Missouri. Whereas Robert attended St. Raymond's Grade School, Joliet Catholic, and Joliet Township High Schools, he also attended Joliet Junior College and graduated from the University of Iowa. In 1943, at the age of 17, Robert enlisted in World War II and served in the Army Air Corps 10th Air Force as a radio radar operator on C-47s. Robert served his country until 1945 and had been promoted to staff sergeant. Robert flew the China-Burma-India route over the eastern Himalayas, which was also known as the Hump, to deliver supplies that were vital to troops fighting the Japanese in China. Robert was awarded the Air Medal and the Distinguished Flying Cross. Robert married Marilyn Burt on January 24, 1948, and were happily married for 67 years, raising 4 children together in Joliet. Robert and Marilyn were among the founding members of the St. Jude Parish. Robert also coached the St. Jude's 8th grade boys basketball team for over 25 years and remains a dedicated support of the parish. Robert had a long life career in sales, eventually opening the Robert Long business based in Joliet, supplying premium sales incentive merchandise. He has been blessed with 4 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet in Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, would like to thank Robert Long for his service and wish him a happy 95th birthday, and it was dated May 27th. So, Robert, I know you're home watching this, so happy birthday again to you, and thank you for your service, sir. We really appreciate it.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd just like to congratulate Bob. I've known Bob 50-plus years, and well-deserved honor. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Mayor? Yes. And I want to thank you and particularly Councilwoman for putting together this recognition. I was able to attend the ceremony, and Mr. Long was very proud, and he did salute the flags and everybody, and his neighbors. Councilwoman, how about it? All the neighbors came out.
All the neighbors came out in the neighborhood. It was quite the celebration.
And I'd like to tell Mr. Long that officially that was not a short proclamation, that is the Long Proclamation.
Happy birthday, Mr. Long.
Next on the agenda is a proclamation recognizing Men's Health Month.
June is National Men's Health Month, and I have a proclamation stating, despite advances in medical technology and research, men continue to live an average of 5 years less than women, with Native American and African American men having the lowest life expectancy. Educating the public and healthcare providers about the importance of a healthy lifestyle and early detection of male health problems will result in reducing rates of mortality from disease. Men who are educated about the value that preventative health can play in prolonging their lifespan and their role as productive family members would be more likely to participate in health screenings. Fathers who maintain a healthy lifestyle are role models for their children and have happier and healthier children. The Men's Health Network worked with Congress to develop a national men's health awareness period as a special campaign to help educate men, boys, and their families about the importance of positive health attitudes and preventative health practices. Men's Health Month website has been established at www.menshealthmonth.org. It features resources, proclamations, and information about awareness, events, and activities, including Wear Blue for Men's Health Month. City of Joliet Men's Health Month will focus on a broad range of men's health issues, including heart disease, mental health, diabetes and prostate, testicular and colon cancer, and the citizens of this city are encouraged to increase awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle, regular exercise, and medical checkups. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby proclaim June is Men's Health Month in the City of Joliet and encourage all of our citizens to pursue preventative health practices and early detection efforts. Signed on June 2nd, 2020, Mayor Robert Odekirk.
Next on the agenda are appointments. Tonight, the mayor is recommending Brad Price be appointed to the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners.
So,
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Did I miss it? Did we get any information on Mr. Price?
no, I just received the name this evening.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk. Motion carried. Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the following change? Remove Council Memo 322-20, which was a resolution finding that a local state of emergency continues implementing a citywide curfew, which is necessary for the protection of public health, safety, and welfare. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the removal of Council Memo 322-20?
So moved.
Second.
In motion and seconded to approve, Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. We did have several callers who registered to speak, so they should be on the line.
Hello, sir. This is Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Mr. Mayor, I know you're getting tired of discussing name and rights agreement, and so am I. I cannot believe that you and the slammers have a total disregard for the city ordinance and the ruling from the Illinois Attorney General to turn over the naming rights document. You stated it was an advisory ruling. I have personally read all 8 pages, and that word is not used. You and Mr. Regis stated that the agreement is between DuPage and the slammers, and the city council and taxpayers do not have a right to review it. The Illinois Attorney General stated that that is not true, and the argument holds no water. You told me personally that the full council had seen the document, and I later find out you did not tell me the truth. By your own admission, you told the Herald News only 4 people in the city had seen the agreement. You, Marty Shanahan, Mr. Regis, and Steve Jones. You violated at least 2 city ordinances by signing the agreement before it was brought before the city council. Section 18 of the Slammers Lease Agreement clearly states the city shall have the sole right to a city could sign the agreement that the language was ambiguous. I suggested to him that if he felt that way, he should do some homework and check to see the Silver Cross Agreement gave it a precedent and that they should follow the past practice. That particular agreement was made public and was brought to the full council for approval and not signed behind closed doors. In the same meeting, Marty said it was a 5-figure agreement, and later you stated it was 6 figures. Release the agreement and we will see the truth. According to the Herald News article, it appears not to be as good a deal as the Silver Cross Agreement. If I'm not correct, then why did you say the sentence should be removed from the lease agreement? Makes you wonder. You made 2 statements about me that I was going to jeopardize the whole agreement by pressing for the release of the document. Let me remind you that I wasn't the one who signed the agreement and agreed to the secret dealings without full council approval. I'm also not the one violating the Attorney General's ruling. You need to look in the mirror. It's you jeopardized the agreement. The second comment was, I'm not a businessman. Well, that's about the only truthful statement you made about the whole deal. You are correct. I'm not. And I don't need to be that the city built a ballpark for $27 million and haven't made 1 dime in profit since 2002. The city has sunk additional millions of dollars into the ballpark. So I wouldn't brag about being a good businessman with 18 years of mismanagement. Then the slammers have the nerve to ask the city to waive $75,000 rent agreement and pay all utilities for this year after violating the Attorney General's ruling. To that I say, go pound sand. In summary, in light of the recent budget cuts and their employee salary cuts, I would respectfully ask the City Council to deny the request to waive the rent and utility payments and demand that they turn over the naming rights document. In addition, the stadium committee should look at a way to dump that money-losing pit. 18 years is long enough. Would any of you on the city council run a business for 18 years and make no profit? I doubt it. So why do you use our tax dollars to do it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hello, this is Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Can you repeat that?
Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Yes, my name is Loretta Hobbs, and I live at 150 North Chicago Street, Joliet, Illinois. I just want to say, we need the police department to have body cams. And also, my other comment to you is, why are you not considering to resign as mayor of the city?
Is that your comment, ma'am?
It sure is.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone vetting these to make sure that these are on agenda items?
I believe that caller signed up in both sections, so I can remind them to ask to make sure they're in.
Okay, are we just doing them all up front?
No, she was registered to speak as a citizen to be heard and also under public comment.
Okay, thank you.
and one person don't answer, so they're getting the third.
You are the last party in the conference. You will hear silence until the conference begins.
Mayor, someone should be on the line.
Okay. Good evening, it's Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Approximately in conference. You will hear silence until the conference begins.
Hello, it's Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
It's not coming through.
Krista, let's move
So
forward.
they're gonna call that person back, and then we have Nick Samaka on the line.
Okay. Good evening, this is Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Yes, it's Nick Samaka, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the ladies and gentlemen of the City Council for giving me a few minutes to update everyone on slammers and our current situation relative to the pandemic. I prepared a brief set of pages, which I hope everyone has had a chance to see and read through. Our basic message is that our industry is in a deep crisis, and the slammers are no exception to the effects of the pandemic and the effects of no baseball on our industry. We have worked extremely hard to create new offerings for our fans and for our corporate sponsors, but basically without Slammers baseball games, we are in a lot of trouble. And without help, I can't tell you we're going to have a season next year. So we are coming to the council with a request for rent relief. In our initial discussion with the baseball committee, since that discussion, we've modified our ask a bit, and specifically, our request is that we variabilize our rent for the 2020 season and essentially prorate it based on the number of games that we are enabled to play. As you are probably all aware, we are still, the entire industry is still under a set of restrictions from the state regarding having games and fans in the seats. So we are trying to find a way to play, but our request is, as I said, that we would variabilize our rent prorated, and if you've got the sheets, the specifics are on the last page. You know, we're very grateful for the support that we've received from our fans, from our sponsors, and from the city council over the years. And we are really hopeful to have your support to help us make it to another season of Slammers baseball soon.
Any questions for Mr. Samaka? Okay, thank you, Nick.
I believe they have my camera on the line.
This is Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
They should be on the line, Mr. Yeah, it shows he's on the line. Mr. Hanson, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, but I have no comment.
Okay. Were you calling about a specific item, Mike?
No, I have a couple of agenda items. I was just on to see if the council had any questions on the first couple of agenda items, that's all.
Do you want to hold and then we'll address them as we get to them?
That would be fine, Mayor.
Okay, you're online then. You're live. Go ahead, Krista.
Okay, so that concludes our citizens to be heard. Next is council committee reports. First is the ad hoc city manager search committee report.
I don't have a report.
We met.
Right. Yeah, Mike, where are we at?
Well, when we left the last meeting, we're going to have a discussion with the full council.
Should we go to executive session tonight at the end of this meeting?
To you guys.
Okay. I suppose we'll do that. Sorry, there isn't anything specific to report tonight.
Next is land use and legislative committee report.
Yes, the Land Use and Legislative Committee met today, 5 o'clock this evening here in the council chamber. Myself, along with Councilman Dickerson and Councilwoman Quillman. We just had a couple of agenda items, one being the discussion of the city manager job description. We had much discussion on the job description, adding the word "or." Steve or council committee members might need to jump in here and help me here, but
Jerry, can you put the mic more in front of your face, please?
I guess my seat is too low. Kind of laid back, but listen.
Thank you.
Much discussion, but I think we made some headway with the job description, adding to be more clear if there's any candidates that are deputy city managers in other cities, similar in size and complexity of the city of Joliet, so we'd be a little more clear to get, applicants that have city manager experience, but maybe a deputy city manager in the city that they're in now. That pretty much covers that, okay?
Right, we didn't lower our standards, but we did
Not
find
at
out.
all.
We
Right.
did discover, though, that it already had in there that it's a permanent residence. You can't live here over on, during the week, and then you have to go home on the weekends. Because that was one of the things that we discussed before, that we thought that wasn't in there. We wanted to change that, but it was already in there.
It was in there.
So if you're gonna be a city manager for the city of Joliet, you have 9 months to move here permanently within the city limits, period.
Yes. So that was already in there, and we just made it look clear for candidates that are deputy city managers. The interim city manager, we'll be discussing that a little further. I believe Councilwoman Councilman will be getting more information for further discussions on the interim city manager at our next land use and legislative committee. I was under the impression, and someone tell me if there was anything else that someone wanted to add to the job description, but that was one of the things that city manager Steve had brought up, that was mentioned about the deputy city manager. So that was discussed, and staff will be coming back with us with a final draft. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Next is Public Safety Committee.
Well, public safety was supposed to meet last week, and due to circumstances beyond our control, we did not meet. The meeting was canceled. However, I know there was an item on the agenda that had been pulled, and I was not aware of it. No one from staff or anybody called me to let me know that the item had been pulled, because had I known that, we probably would have canceled the meeting anyway. So, yeah, I was a little bit miffed by that, but so in the end, it was okay that that the council didn't meet that night. So, other than that, I have nothing to report.
Question, Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman, as the chair, did you pull that?
No,
Oh, well, we gotta get that worked out so it doesn't happen again.
right.
Okay.
Who
But there-
pulled it?
Well, I believe the city manager pulled it, because the secretary that was involved and everybody else that was involved, they said I already knew about it, but I had no idea that it was being pulled, nor was I consulted.
We're checking out whether there's a tornado warning right now, so I missed that. What was it that I pulled?
The public safety meeting last week, you pulled an agenda item off and didn't talk to me about it or let me know.
Which item was it? I don't recall.
Well, I don't have it in front of me. It was like vehicles or something about vehicles or something.
Oh, that never should have been on there. When the public works folks and the fleet people were putting together their list of vehicles, the continuing implementation of the plan, they had that on there, and I said, whoa, we talked about doing this a little bit later in the fall. So it never should have been on in the first place. So I think it was 10 police interceptors.
But the thing of it was, Steve, really that was the only thing on the agenda, because the other thing was we were going to have an update on the flooding issue by Mr. Truzna, and he could have done it at the council meeting. So what I'm asking you is, you didn't tell me you were going to do it. Number two, we could have canceled the meeting had we gone through with the meetings last week. We would have met and didn't have to.
I certainly apologize for that. We looked at it as a public works item that just inadvertently went onto an agenda. We didn't look at it as something that was actually being planned. So that's certainly my fault.
I know, so in the future, if you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Service Committee report.
Public Service met here at City Hall in the council chambers a week ago on June 1st at 4:30 in the afternoon. I think we were the only meeting that met last week. It was a very short agenda with a total of, I think, 7 items, 2 contracts, a change order, and some ordinances and resolutions. All 7 of the items were vetted by the committee, and all got unanimous approval for recommendation to the full council for council approval. Nothing stands out. There was contracts for ongoing repairs for the Spring Creek improvement, and very, very basic stuff. I know our agendas probably will remain short for some time until we actually can get our financial feedback under us. We're spending, hopefully, as little as we have to. So there's nothing to point out here other than to say all the items do appear on the council agenda tonight. All the items did receive unanimous approval from the committee for recommendation to the full council. Do we need to add anything, Terry, Betty?
No more than I think that the road resurfacing program came up. They gave us a list, so we may go through that a little bit tonight, but I thought that was
Yes, actually,
great.
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for reminding me, Councilwoman. Where's that at? Yes. Now, is that, Steve, I don't know if Jim Trisnan's here, that resurfacing list, when we approved the 2020 list of streets to be resurfaced, will be published or posted on the city website, correct? I mean, somewhere accessible and easy to get to for the average citizen.
Yes, we always try to make sure that all the residents know that we're spreading these projects around, and there's a little bit of an anticipation, so it will be posted.
So maybe even on the homepage, on the landing page, we can put a link, IT can put a link saying this year's streets.
Sure.
Make it simple for the people.
We're also ramping up our communication efforts. Katie Smith is back in my office after maternity leave. We're trying to find new ways where we could do things even, different, via a variety of methods. So I think you'll start to see more information flowing out of City Hall than has occurred in the past. So we'll work.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they don't have to go through the whole committee agendas.
No,
and find it that way.
not at all.
Make it real simple with a hyperlink.
This is something we definitely want to hype.
Okay.
Steve, you just mentioned the tornado warning. Is there any update on this?
Our police officer said it appears to be more central and east of us. It was identified as being central Will County, but apparently it's going from Manhattan to Peatown.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilwoman Gavin, thank you for reminding me, because I did overlook that item, and I think a lot of people do wait for that every year.
Yeah.
I think we have an excess of 80 streets, if I remember.
Absolutely. It is
Evenly
great.
divided amongst all 5 districts.
All 5
Resurfacing
districts are
going on.
divided, so yeah, they're happy. Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
No.
No? Then that would be our report, Mayor.
Thank you.
Stadium Committee report.
If it's okay with you, Mayor, I think I'd like to give it just before we vote on it. I think it would add more to
Okay.
help with the questions that are going to come up at that time.
Sure.
I show no other reports. Next is consent agenda. It's recommended the minutes of the council meeting held on May 19th, 2020 stand approved as recorded. Council memo 310-20, 2020 deteriorated neighborhood resurfacing program. It's recommended this program be approved. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried. There are no licenses and permit applications. Next, under public hearings is Council Memo 312-20, Proposed Rock Run Crossing Redevelopment Project Area Tax Increment Financing District Eligibility Study and Redevelopment Plan and Project. The plan is to open the public hearing and continue this and the item to August 18th, 2020.
It'll be tabled at the end.
We'll continue it to the August 8th, 2020.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Are there any
Yep.
comments?
No, we just have to, publicly open it and then automatically continue it. So,
Okay.
so the mayor,
Public hearing is hereby opened, and then we need a motion to continue.
yes, a motion to continue the item to the August 18th, 2020 council meeting, along with the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to continue Council Memo 312-20, which is a proposed Rock Run Crossing Redevelopment Project Area Tax Increment Financing District Eligibility Study and Redevelopment Plan and Project, and the public hearing to the August 18th, 2020 council meeting. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 312-20 is continued to the August 18th council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'll give a little a summary of this. And Krista, are there folks who are going to speak?
For the public, I'm sorry, we didn't see, for the public hearing, no. Because
Okay.
we continued it.
Right,
We'll
initially
go
they
through
were,
it.
but what this is for, this is the statutory requirement that's required whenever there's a TIF district being proposed. This is the TIF district that's associated with Rockland Crossing, which of course we refer to as the Cullinan project. The reason for this deferral is there's some financial information that we're waiting for that will be generated as we get closer through the summer months. So that's the reason for the continuance.
Thank you.
Next under ordinances is Council Memo 314-20, Audubon Parkway West, first re-subdivision, a minor subdivision. This includes an ordinance approving the preliminary plat of Audubon Parkway West, first re-subdivision, a minor subdivision, and an ordinance approving the recording plat of Audubon Parkway West, first re-subdivision, a minor subdivision. It's recommended said ordinances be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on under resolutions. Council Memo 316-20 is a resolution approving and authorizing the acceptance of a COVID-19 emergency supplemental grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
Mayor, do we have a short explanation?
Yes.
Steve?
We have received grant funds through the U.S. Department of Justice for disinfectant units for police. This is UV protection, basically, as a result of some of the COVID transmission. I believe it is, I don't have the number in front of me.
119,300 and some dollars.
Exactly.
Right.
There are 3 separate units, and it would include both of our police facilities.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I think it's important that we state that number again. It's just north of 119,000. I don't want any citizens to be confused. We're getting like $20 million in grant. This is specifically, as Steve said, for disinfectants to fight and combat the spread of the virus amongst our police department and its equipment.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 316-20?
So moved.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 317-20, a resolution authorizing a CDBG-CV subrecipient agreement with the Spanish Community Center. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I'm sorry, if we could thank staff and the staff at Spanish Center for putting this together. They do a great job, and they've been doing it in that community for a long time, so thank you.
Council Memo 318-20 is a resolution approving an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for Phase 3 engineering and construction of the Garnsey Avenue over Spring Creek Improvement Project in the amount of $468,600. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 319-20 is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the Phase 3 engineering services for the Garnsey Avenue over Spring Creek Improvement Project in the amount of $243,000. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Pullman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 320-20 is a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the construction of the Guernsey Avenue over Spring Creek Improvement Project in the amount of $420,000. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Pullman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 321-20 is a resolution authorizing the waiver of Joliet Slammers lease payments for 2020.
Go ahead, Pat.
So on Tuesday, May 26th, the Stadium Committee met. Councilwoman Councilwoman was there, Councilman Turk was there. From the Slammers was Nick Samaka, Heather and John Walsh was there. They gave their presentation, and I think I'd like to start with all the good they've been doing. They've been running a program for Food for Heroes that they gave out to everyone. They've been scheduling days that they've given lunches, food to the first providers of services here, and the Heroes program has been very active on their part. They've given out about 1,500 meals so far. The cost for these meals have been donated by other organizations in the area. These were not being paid for by the Slammers themselves. There was two initial conversations. One, as mentioned again from Mr. Sheraton, had to do with the contract and the Attorney General requiring it to be released in the Slammers' opinion and with their contract with DuPage Medical. They feel they do not have to give this out. I did make a copy of the contract, of our agreement with the Slammers that does say the city shall have the sole right to approve and name the stadium. They then asked for some leniency on the payment, as stated on the agenda in the background, that their lease now calls for $75,000 to be paid for in 2 installments of $37.50. We do all know that there has been no baseball played. Not sure that there will be. They seem to be positive that they hope to. And we all know the minor league systems from the major league. It appears that they will not play this year. Questionable, I guess, if the major leagues themselves are going to play as of today. This was the first I had heard from the Slammers on their request to prorate the call, the rents based on the number of games they would play. I was going to offer up that, as many organizations have done, they have moved the rents and or payments to the future when a team would be playing. I have no problem once I understand what they would pay, or offering to move their $75,000 rent till next year when they are playing. I don't know if Steve, have you read that information on what is it per game they're going to pay us, or have you seen that?
I believe they were talking about prorating. I mean, I heard what you heard today, so.
And there was no decision at the stadium committee meeting other than to move this to the total city council tonight. Unless Jan and or Mike wanted to add something to that, that's suggested a meeting.
So, Pat,
Yes?
are you suggesting that it be waived, but they make the money up to us next year?
I don't know if waive is the correct term, but I'm of that. I was not going to forgive it based on where we are as a city.
Right.
What we put into the stadium and what we are negotiating with employees. Now, I realize if they're not playing, there's no money. Many other organizations, banks, insurance companies, the like haven't given it up, but postponed the payment of it. And I would be in favor of helping out in that way. If they don't play this year, I would say they would have to pay $150,000 next year.
So do they know this proposal?
No.
Shall we table this then? Do you want to table it?
Well, I don't know that, I didn't know that they were going to ask for a prorated piece, and I have no problem prorating it, but not forgiving what's not there. So if they played half the season, they're going to pay us $37.50. That's fine. I mean, for me, but you still owe us $75,000.
Right, right.
So you'd owe us the $37.50 next year. But I have no problem tabling it, getting with them, and bringing it back. Since we have a meeting in a week, Mayor, we can put it on that agenda, and I'm sure the Slammers would be easy to
And
talk
then
to
we have
here.
the full council as well.
Before we table,
Okay.
I'm just asking, I didn't do anything.
widen some history on this pro rata,
Okay.
okay? I think that
Wait,
officials,
No, go ahead.
I think just to know, for Councilman Mudrin's curiosity, you just heard about it. I think most of us, if not all of us, got a call from, an official from these Slammers in the last couple of weeks. When I talked to Mr. Wilson, of course, I'm the lone no vote on the contract, but it is a legal lease of contract now, and I said the only way I can support it is if you divide it up amongst the number of games and events maybe you had last year and the first year and do a pro rata. So that's how that started. I told him I can't support just forgiving it. I mean, if all of a sudden you end up having 27 games, you're going to need to pay a pro rata per game or per event. So that's kind of where it came from. And I've got to make it clear that the PPP loan/grant that they received, and many businesses have received from the CARES Act, can only be used for personnel. It can't be used to cover the rent. The particular loan/grant that they have. So that's where the pro rata came from. I told them I couldn't even consider supporting it unless we did something prorated.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I kind of want to lean toward the table of tabling this because we don't have the information. We just heard about the pro rata on the rent. So I was about to make a motion to table before Councilwoman started. So
just briefly, I would suggest removing it actually tonight and then bringing it back once we've revised the resolution.
okay.
Because as it stands right now, it's a waiver of the rent payments.
Okay. So
And I think we're all in agreement on that, because I was gonna suggest it too, because any pro rata that we might be amicable to is not mentioned in this form of the memo.
So we're looking for a motion to remove this item from the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And motion and seconded to remove Council Memo 321-20, which is a resolution authorizing the waiver of Joliet Slammers lease payments for 2020. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 322-20 was previously removed from the agenda. Moving on under award of contracts. Council Memo 323-20, request for authorization to award a professional services agreement for the Phase 3 engineering services for the Garnsey Avenue over Spring Creek Improvement Project to Willett, Hoffman and Associates in an amount not to exceed $242,128.38. And Council Memo 324-20, request for authorization to award a contract for the Arizona Avenue, Water Street, Wallace Street Water Main Improvement Project to PT Farrow Construction in the amount of $563,182.51. It's recommended Council Memos 323-20 and 324-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
I would just make the comment to clarify for anybody watching too. You know, certainly there's so much going on right now, locally, statewide, in this country that people tend to forget about the financial difficulties that are still looming and haven't hit us full force. The second item is from the enterprise fund from the sewer and water fund. That's separate from the general fund, and it's self-sufficient and solvent on its own. And the first one, if I remember correctly, that's what do you want to call it? 80-20.
Yes.
Federal, and the city matching fund has to be 20% because it's a bridge project. So very little money is being spent out of the general fund here. And again, to remind people, as it stands currently, the water and sewer fund is still solvent. So I would vote aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under amendments, change orders, and payments, Council Memo 326-20, request for authorization to approve change order number 1 for the West Side Wastewater Treatment Plant SST tank repairs project to Lindblad Construction in the amount of $25,620. It's recommended Council Memo 326-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager report.
Thank you. 2 items tonight. One of them is really good news. As everyone knows, we had a tough budget process last year, and one of the more controversial items within that budget process was consideration of whether the city would give concurrence to our library to rehabilitate and rehab the downtown space. At the time, $4 million had been put together in a capital reserve by the library, and the library was looking for $6.5 million of general obligation bond funding. At the time, council gave indication that they would go along with this, but there was an interesting part of this. I remember the mayor, I think you were the person who challenged the library to find other sources. You know, obviously the county was one of the sources that was discussed. Well, I'm really happy to indicate that due to the hard work of Megan Millen and her team, they were able to work with our state legislators and get $6.5 million of state funding, which in effect means that the $6.5 million plus the $4 million they have is the total for the project. The details are flowing. This was part of something called Rebuild Illinois Community Development Initiatives, which was adopted in the state budget. The timing of the grant and the timing of the project, it'll probably still involve some sort of debt, but instead of being paid by property tax, it would be paid for by the reserves plus the state money. So we're going to work on that. I believe next week our financial advisor is coming to City Hall anyway for some other issues, and they're going to start that dialogue. From a timing perspective, again, we don't know. We do know that sometime by fall, they'll have their architectural completed. They were already well into this. And, you know, the earliest it could probably happen would be winter of this year, perhaps, you know, bidding in winter, construction sometime in 2021. But it all depends on the funding and how this thing could be structured. So excellent news. And then, of course, there's the challenge. There have been a couple of references made to our financial challenges. Just want to let you know that we are still talking with individual labor unions. Besides the cuts that council was aware of and some of the things we're honing in on, we've had a number of individuals perhaps express desire to perhaps retire early, and some folks that we haven't included in the potential for some savings. So we're beyond where I wanted to be. I wanted to have some programs in front of you by now, but I think as long as the dialogue is continuing, and it also gives us a little bit more time with our finance director to take whatever new data he's getting from the state to factor it in to see where we are. Even though we've had some projections from the state, we've had some additional revenues come in, he's still in that range of $12 to $20 million. And of course, the big wild card right now is the building across the street and the one down on the river as to when they will open up. So huge variable, but apparently there are discussions at the gaming board, at the governor's office with gaming board folks to talk about that. Hopefully this could be part of phase 4, which if everything holds together, I believe June 28th is the date we would move into the next section. So that's my report.
Mayor, question, Steve?
Yes.
You know, have we had any discussions with the county as far as the funding they received from the federal government? Or, I mean, will we be eligible for some? Do we need to apply for it? Do we know a process yet or anything?
Well, they're working on, they formed a separate committee to address that. I participated somewhat in it. The issue is $120 million they have, and this isn't a Will County issue. The other counties that received the money, I think, are facing the same problem, is it didn't have a lot of instructions from the federal government how to spend it, other than the caveat appears to be it needs to be for COVID-related expenses, number one, and number two, for unbudgeted items. So there was a thought meeting with the mayor from Naperville and Aurora and other large communities that our police and fire salaries or costs could be rolled into this, but those were budgeted for, most of them were. So that doesn't appear to be the case. So no, there's nothing to apply for yet. We're hoping, or I think everyone's hoping there'll be more directive coming from Washington about that money. I don't think statewide there's $120 million in COVID expenses that weren't budgeted for. So I think it needs to be refined somewhat.
All right, thank you.
Next is new business, not for final action or recommendation.
No.
Nope.
Just one item here, Mayor. And I know we should be getting some results now about the cannabis funds, So will we be getting a report as to what that is and how that money is going to be allocated, especially when it comes to the devastating districts?
I believe the cannabis, the 3%, I don't believe that gets distributed until October. But there would be some sales tax numbers out there just for the normal sales tax. I'm not sure we could disclose those because any sales tax user is under confidentiality agreements with the city. I mean, if we had 6 or 7, then we could talk about what the total is, but with there only really being one operator, even pulling that sales tax data, we couldn't share that. So my recollection is that once RISE was approved, there was some sort of a grant program that they were going to offer. It wasn't going to involve us. It was going to be directly
It was theirs, yes.
So I could follow up. I believe Mr. Hansen was their attorney. I believe he was in the room when that commitment was made. I don't know whether they've entered into any sort of agreement with any organization, but we could certainly follow up. But
Okay.
that's the private agreement, not the city portion.
Right, okay. And just one quick thing before you leave the dais, Steve. On this, and I'm just putting it out there, I just need more information as well as, and this is for the public that's out there. This state has put out a grant regarding the cannabis money. $31.2 million that is available. The applications are out now. And it's for Region 3, and Joliet happens to sit in Region 3. So if you hear anything about that or find out any other information about that, if you would let us know, please.
The grant application process is open right now, you're saying?
I believe the grant
Okay.
application, it's due July 20th.
Okay, we'll follow up. In fact, we'll get information on our website in case there's anyone out there who seeks the same info. So we'll follow up on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mike?
Nothing.
Pat? No. Terry?
Nothing.
Next is public comments. Do they have some? Do they have them lined up? Okay. Mike Hanson?
Mike, you're on the line. Do you need to address the council?
No, I do not, Mayor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We're going to go to the next call then. Mark, this is Mayor Odeker. Can you give your name, address, and make your comment, please?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor Odekirk and members of the City Council. My name is Mark Riglione, 1113 Kensington Street, Shorewood, Illinois. I'm president of the Board of Education of Troy School District 30C. I appear before you this evening to address concerns the school district has with the proposed Rock Run Crossings Tax Increment Financing District, otherwise known as the TIF District. The district is a member of the Joint Review Board, and we have completed a careful analysis of the materials the city has provided to support the proposed TIF district. We have three primary concerns. Number one, the size of the proposed development budget and projected EAV. Number two, the quality of the eligibility study. And number three, the impact on our taxpayers from this public subsidy to the developer. With respect to the development budget, we know that it's huge. The city is proposing to spend in excess of $161 million to support this project. The city study provides no explanation for the spending other than very broad categories such as public works or improvements at $91 million and property assembly at the site preparation of $38 million. We have requested documents to support this level of spending, and we're told by the city attorney that no such documents exist. It's very hard to believe that the city has no documents to support spending of this magnitude. And if it's true that the city really does not have any documents, how do you develop this budget, and where are the numbers coming from? Of further concern is the projected EAV at a full build-out at $81 million. The eligibility study has no support for this projection, and when we asked the city for any documents that could provide further information, we were told that no such documents exist. For the city to commit to spend over $161 million with no support for the budget or the projected value of the project is deeply troubling for us and raises questions as to how much due diligence the city has completed. The first thing we noticed when we received the eligibility study is that it was completed by the attorney for the developer. We were taken aback that the city would ask the Joint Review Board to rely on a study by the attorneys for the party with the most to gain from this development. It strikes us that there's an inherent conflict with the developer's attorney acting as the advocate for the developer and also as the city's expert to determine whether the area is eligible for the TIF district. We find this to be a serious effect in the process that greatly impacts the credibility of the study. Based upon a review of the study, the factors relied upon the attorney seem poorly supported and not aligned with the requirements of the TIF Act. District 30C is subject to the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law, also known as the tax cap. Because of that way the tax cap operates, the city's proposal will impose an additional burden on our taxpayers of $65 million over the life of the TIF district. Our taxpayers, many of whom do not live in Joliet, will look at their tax bill and think they are paying more to the district when in reality the money will be directed to the city. $65 million is enough for us to build 2 schools or complete significant renovations on many of our buildings. This is a massive tax hike on the District 30C community, and there's no other way to describe it. In closing, we are requesting that the city take a step back and reconsider the TIF proposal. The budget and anticipated EAV are unsupported, and we have no idea how you arrived at these values. The eligibility study was completed by the advocates for the developer, raising significant conflict of interest concerns. Finally, the impact on District 30C taxpayers is enormous and will drain precious resources from our residents that they will rightfully expect are being spent for educational purposes.
Ma'am, this is Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and make your comment, please?
Hi, Mary Beth Gannon, Western Avenue, Joliet. My comment is as follows. Joliet is paying close attention to you, Steve Jones, Pat Mudrin, Duck Dickinson, Sherry Bird, and Mike Turk, and Betty Gavin. We don't like what we see. I know you don't care, Mr. Jones, as you don't even live in our city, but gladly take our money. Where exactly were the 6 of you on May 23rd when tornadoes passed through our area? The residents needed you, and you were nowhere to be found. You know who was out as soon as the sirens stopped? Councilwoman Jan Quillman and her husband Tom. They were moving trees out of the road and checking on neighbors. Naturally, Mayor Bob was there too. He's always there for Joliet, good and bad, because he's a stand-up man. His wife Rebecca was helping too. Who else was there? Marty Shanahan, the guy you treated like garbage and fired with no legitimate reason. A family man with 3 kids, one of them in diapers, I believe. With the way he's been treated by you folks for the last year, you'd think the last thing he'd want to do is be in Joliet. But Marty was there too. He brought a generator to my home so my elderly disabled father could have electricity for his oxygen machine. Marty's wife Gabby was helping too. All of them continue to help the people of this town all weekend. 1 week later, after a peaceful protest, a separate group of rioters and looters sought to destroy our city. Where were you, Steve Jones, Betty Gavin, Duck Dickinson, Mike Turk, Pat Mudrin, and Sherry Reardon? You certainly weren't out there facing our city's challenges that night. You could have been promoting peace and calm instead of posting selfies. Our brave mayor, Bob Odekirk, was out there saving our city, out there along with our first responders and Councilman Larry Hugg. We are the only big city in Chicagoland that have looting and rioting kept to a minimum because we have a stand-up mayor. Our poor mayor was attacked and falsely accused, but he still holds his head high, and he continues to want our city to be better, to make everyone feel included. You could learn from him. The people of this town overwhelmingly support Mayor Bob, and your efforts to get rid of him have failed. We want him to remain mayor. We also want justice for Marty Shanahan, and for the 6 of you to start working with the other 4 people at the dais instead of playing petty politics. We want you to quit spending our money when we are broke from COVID-19. Last meeting, you blew nearly $2 million on new vehicles that your own mechanics said could have waited. You've increased Steve Jones' pay while seeking to reduce the pay of our city workers. I've been looking at your Ansel Glink bills from February to present, and it appears you've wasted $14,000 in change of taxpayer money for your witch hunt. If Marty Shanahan were still city manager, he'd be pushing fiscal responsibility instead of reckless spending. He saved our city more than $10 million when he was interim manager. Steve only cost us money. As city attorney, Marty designed a plan for restaurants during the pandemic that was adopted by municipalities across our state. In times of crisis, we need leadership, and the 6 of you have a long way to go to earn our respect. Do you want our city to heal, or do you want to further the rift? Thank you.
Next caller is on the line.
Good evening, it's Mayor Odekirk. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Audrey Secco, Joliet, Illinois. I'm going to start off with the same question I've been asking for 12 months now. When are you going to get serious about hiring a city manager? Now that we are free to move about in small groups, I've come to find out many residents are wondering and asking the same questions that I speak to you of. I'm glad to say people are starting to pay attention to the shenanigans of this council. And I use the word shenanigans to be polite. That is not my word of choice. Interim Jones was quoted in the past several weeks ago saying he will remain in the job until after the next Joliet City Council elections. Who told Jones as a contractor he will be retained until April of 2021? Jones has given himself his own job performance review as, "I think I'm doing a decent job," unquote. He's getting paid $135 an hour to do a decent job for the city. and an average of 30 hours a week, that comes to over $200,000 annually or more, and he's not full-time. That is over half what any president of the United States is paid, and that president works 24/7. This is how our tax dollars are at work. And I see the council members that agreed to this beauty contract were Mudrin, Gavin, Reardon, Turk, and Dickinson. And it sounds like he's been guaranteed employment until April of next year. Now, a few meetings back, Councilwoman Quillman said she and her committee would sit down and review the job description to start a new search. Why is she going to waste her and the committee's time if you've guaranteed Jones this sweetheart deal for another year? And I'm asking Jones directly, where were you during and after the tornado struck? What offers of help were you to the many people with torn up homes and yards? What help did you provide anyone in Joliet? Were you even in Joliet? Did you even care? We are paying you handsomely. What have you given back? And finally, speaking to the Mudrin Five, why haven't you spoke up and publicly announced you're behind the mayor? What happened to innocent until proven guilty? Why did you share your opinions in the newspaper before you even found out all the facts? You have shown time and again you're working with a vendetta. You successfully removed Marty from the city manager's job, then fired him from city attorney. Why won't you say why you fired him? Why is it a secret? And you can't use the excuse that employee actions are private because you didn't mind airing all the crap about David Hills in public. If you had a legitimate reason to fire him, say so. Or again, was it just a part of a larger plan which you won't admit to? And I think this is how your agenda goes. You got rid of Marty, next up is the mayor. Councilman Huck and Councilwoman Quillman, watch out. You will be next on their list. And at the very least, they will try to neutralize you with the non-resident interim city manager continuing to be their puppet. And I want you to know I'm getting tired of this crap. Thank you.
Next caller.
Sir, can you give your name, address, and make your comment, please?
Yes. Hello, my name is Neil Querio. I live on Earl Avenue in Joliet. I've lived in Joliet most of my life. I went away for college and then came back to the city to live. I've lived a privileged life in the city. I've never had to fear the police or the other residents of my city because of my skin color. In light of recent events and other events that have been happening for years now, I asked our city council members and our mayor, what is Joliet going to do to make our African American citizens heard? What are we going to do to make sure they feel safe in this community? What safeguards are in place to hold our police officers accountable? When will our officers be equipped with body cams? Have they been trained in de-escalation techniques? What is Joliet going to do to ensure the safety of every member of this community? What is the plan? Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, you're on. This is Mayor Odeker. Can you give your name, address, and comment, please?
Hi, this is Kathy Spieler, Joliet, Illinois. I came by tonight to speak for a few reasons. One is I would like to say I think Marty Shanahan was wrongly terminated. He did an excellent job for the city, both as interim city manager and also as the city attorney. We all would like to know why was this done. Secondly, I would like to publicly thank our mayor for not only getting us through the tornado and the flooding, he was out there working along with his wife, Mrs. Oderkirk, and Councilwoman Jan Quillman. I would also like to mention that during this crisis, Marty Shanahan was out helping people who had lost power, including myself, and this is after he had been terminated. Well, that certainly shows where people's hearts are at in our city now, doesn't it? I want to say thank you, Mayor, Councilman Huck, and Councilman Quillman, who attended the peaceful protest. but especially want to thank you, Mayor, for your courage and your caring during the rioting, looting, and arson to try and help defuse the situation. You said something today at the press conference that really hit me. You said, "I also have a sworn responsibility to protect the life, liberty, and property of the people of Joliet. It's a matter of public safety." And yes, sir, you certainly have done this, and we could not be more grateful and proud to call you our mayor. It's not just me saying this, there are hundreds and hundreds of comments all over social media praising you for getting out there and trying to save our city during this horrific time. We always know your heart is in the city and its best interest, Mayor. We stand with you, and thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the public comments this evening. Next is mayor and council comments.
Pat?
None.
Mike?
Nothing.
Eddie?
Yes, just a quick one. First, I want to thank the citizens who marched in this process and protested.
You are the last party in the conference. You will hear silence until the conference begins.
Or not, whatever that was. But anyway, I wanted to reach out to the peaceful protesters that was marching for justice in this city. And I thank you for your comments. I thank you for reaching out. I also thank you for your time that you set aside to sit down and send me your proposals for what change looks like for you. And keep those proposal changes coming in. As I promised you all, I will collect those and bring them to this full council where we will be able to work in making impactful changes that will reflect for all of our residents in this city. What we've gone through, in my Fannie Lou Hamer voice, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so with that being said, we must come together. We must work for change in this city. I feel the winds of change blowing now as I've been speaking to you all about it. I want to also thank the police department for hosting us and having that dialogue, that open dialogue. Please continue that dialogue with our residents, our community leaders, and our clergy. It is no secret where I stand in this whole process. I stand for justice. And I will continue to stand for justice as long as God has allowed me to have breath in this body. I urge my fellow colleagues to work with me on this, and let's get to where our residents can feel like they are not afraid. I know how that feels. And I am so glad that my fellow residents of a different ethnic background that have had that white privilege, I'm glad you're understanding how we feel in this and put yourself on the front line. It was amazing to see globally that we have Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, everybody in this movement. This is a different time for everybody. This is a different time. And Mayor, I want to say this to you as I looked what I saw. And like I told you this afternoon, when I saw that video, I was shocked. I was shocked because I didn't know who you were, but I knew that whoever that was, according to what I was watching, instigated. That's how it appeared to me. That's why I took my stand. And I'm not going to hold anything back. We all know that we cannot divide and lead this city at the same time. So those are my comments. Those are my comments. Let's pray, let's work together and make things right. We must do this to save this city. We must do this. So let's work together. Let's make sure that our residents are taken care of and they feel secure. Thank you.
Well, this is a long time coming, but I'd like to thank all the city workers that were also out there the night of the non-tornado we had, but they would have been in our house in the neighborhood, they would have seen it was actually a tornado that hit, and it was quite the mess, and everybody's been out there. They're still out there cleaning up a lot of the trees that were down. I've never seen so many trees down in the neighborhoods before. They all worked hard. I did talk to our chief of police, Al Rochner, and they're working, the police department's been discussing what happened over these past few days and weeks. And I have to say, they did do a great job. We had some looting, but nothing like some of the other communities that I visited. I was in Naperville the other day for a doctor's appointment. I drove through the downtown, and the devastation down there was just, whoa, wow. Just broken window after broken window. And then in Homewood, Illinois, and Glenwood, Illinois, they shut down Halsted Street and destroyed a lot of the businesses along there, the protesters, in their anger. And I think part of the anger too is it's just been so long, and everybody's been cooped up in the houses, and they wanted to get out, and this happened, and it's a shame that it happened, but it happened. And so maybe hopefully we can all work together and move forward. I know that there are changes that need to be made, but we do have one of the best police departments in the state of Illinois. They get awarded every year, and they do follow guidelines that are sustainable, and which they do follow. So I know some residents have sent me emails wanting this and this and this done, but those are already implemented. But I know that the chief and his deputy chiefs are working on some new things, and as soon as this thing gets over with, I don't think the COVID's ever going to get over with, to be honest with you, not for a while yet, but when we start having the neighborhood meetings again, I know they want to meet with all the folks and sit down and have conversations.
I had the opportunity today, Mayor, to offer up the prayer to start this meeting. And in it, I did call for unity. And I agree, Councilwoman Gavin. We need serious, sincere unity. Okay? All problems must be faced by everyone at one time, regardless of to what degree they're involved in that problem. I'm going to make some statements here, and you know, I'm not asking, I'm you know, just please indicate through an eye or a raise of the hand here if you agree. And if you disagree, you won't be interrupting me to say, no, I don't agree with your statements. I'm going to say several statements. And I want us all, and I think I might be stating the obvious, but I want to do this. What happened to Minneapolis resident George Floyd was and remains unacceptable. The man was killed for no reason that I can see other than excessive force. Anybody disagree?
I totally agree.
Okay.
Unacceptable.
What happened with the peaceful marchers, myself, I will defend their right to peacefully march no matter what the topic is because of the Constitution, even if it puts my body in harm's way and maybe even death. What's the old saying? I may disagree with you, and I'm not saying I disagree with him, but the old saying was, I may disagree with you, but I'll fight to my death for your right to say it, right? Sure. I support the peaceful demonstrators. Everybody here agree?
I agree.
We have issues within, nationwide, the judicial system, and in policing overall, some issues that need to be addressed and need to be addressed sooner rather than later. But like any group of individuals that we, you know, all people of color, all people who are white, all policemen are not all bad. No group should be broad brushed. But we do need, I think, does anybody disagree that we need to address social justice issues? Anybody disagree?
No.
Okay. I will never support criminals who vandalize, riot, and loot. Anybody want to argue with me about that?
No, I totally agree. I agree with you.
I attended, not yet the day before, yesterday, but 8 days ago, the Sunday before the evening's events, I attended the peaceful rally at the White Castle about 3:30 in the afternoon. Talked to a couple of people. I was there, did not make my presence overbearing or known because it's not about me. And I applaud those folks who then were peacefully protesting, passionately protesting, but peacefully, and continued to throughout the day into the dusk, at which point many of them left. I know that because right around 8 o'clock that evening, my phone started blowing up. I think some of your phones may have too. My wife saw it on social media and said, something bad's happening. I was in my shorts and a t-shirt, we were watching TV, and I said, I gotta get dressed, I gotta go down, I gotta see what's going on. We heard about the Louis Joliet Mall, we heard about the Northbridge Mall, we heard about downtown at the corner of Jefferson and Jackson. My wife said, why do you have to go? I said, because I'm a councilman. I was elected to represent, as the mayor and every one of you, were to represent and keep every citizen's best interest in mind. So I traveled to the Louis Joliet Mall. I saw the damage that was done, and I will pause for a moment from that subject and say the police did a tremendous job. I counted over 90 doors at the Louis Joliet Mall, of which only 8 were broken. 4 at a north main entrance, and 4 at the old JCPenney, I think, that were, had been boarded up. But they were broke when I went there, but later got boarded up. That means that our police responded in such a fashion as to shut down the criminal looters and vandals who tried to gain access and do God knows what to that building, and to all the small business owners inside that building. Now, there's those out there that are saying the police response wasn't perfect. I'm far from perfect. The police department's more perfect than me because I'm really imperfect. I'm sure there's flaws in the system. I think any self-respecting police department, and I know we have one, always looks at itself after an incident to tweak and see how they can do a better job. But the response was tremendous. And it minimized the damage towards any citizen. So I made it down there and I planted myself at the corner of Ground Zero. After I went to the mall, I went to the corner of Jefferson and Larkin, and what I observed was chaos, riot. Not all, but many criminal acts. I had one young African-American woman, I will venture a guess, her early 20s, that came up to me when I was in the, what's it called, Tiger America parking lot, right on the corner there. And she said, excuse me, can you tell me how to get to Reed Street? I said, well, I don't think you want to walk down Jefferson. She said, no, I don't. She said, I attended this protest all day, and my friends and I got separated when the peaceful protest ended. They just texted me, I'm on Reed Street. She was from out of town, I'm guessing, she didn't say. How do I get to Reed Street? And I gave her directions, not down Jefferson, but through the Jewel parking lot in the back way to get her there safely. And she said, I'm scared. I need to get into that car, I need to get home. I got the impression, I didn't get the details, that maybe it was a car full of younger women. So they'd be maybe doubly scared. Next to me stood a group of 5 young men, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye, they were about 15 or 20 feet away. One guy was standing here, and his hand was like this. And I looked, and he had an orange in his hand. He passed it to the other guy, and they talked. I turned to him, and I said, young man, if you're going to eat that, that's fantastic. But if you're going to do something else with that, you're going to cause yourself a lot of trouble. He looked at me for several seconds, and he dropped the orange. When he left, and I went over to the orange was frozen solid. It might as well been a Major League Baseball. Just like the bottles of water that were frozen. Now again, what frustrates me is those that put the looters and the criminality of the later evening and call them protesters, just like the honest, peaceful, passionate protesters that were there all day. That's a disservice and an injustice to the folks that are just pouring their hearts out with passion to make social change peacefully. These are separate groups. It was a mess, folks. If you weren't there, you really can't comment on how bad it was, how dangerous it was for everyone. With that said, it's no secret we have a controversy involving our mayor. I believe in due process. And so there is a state police investigation that's going to address that. I think calmer minds and mature people would say, let's wait for that formal investigation and see what evidence is brought forward. End of comments. That's all I had to say about that. As far as the mayor being down there, I believe Councilwoman Quillen, you were down there for a short period of time at least, correct? Yes. And I was down there for 3.5, 4 hours. I felt duty bound to be down there, if nothing else than to witness and observe. If that young lady who came to me and asked for directions back to Reed Street had been accosted as she walked away, I would have defended her. Maybe I would have lost, but damn it, I would have tried. Because I believe we are in this together, Councilwoman. We're in this together. And we have to come together. And we have to defend each other. We have to defend our city. We have to defend people's homes, people's families, people's children. There was a lot of people throughout the city, north, south, east, and west, that were very scared as they sat in their homes that night. It almost reminded me, for some older folks that might remember this analogy, the War of the Worlds thing that we heard about back in the day when people were hunkered down, except this wasn't pretend. So I went back and forth to the mall. The Northridge Mall is where if people aren't familiar with the name, that's in your district, Councilman Mudrin. That's where the Burlington Coat Factory and the Dress for Less, the Ross Dress, and that is there. And then, of course, there's the larger mall, Louis Joliet, that we're all familiar with. And I went back and forth throughout the night there, and then back to Ground Zero at Jefferson and Larkin. There was an article in the paper about a gentleman who was walking around with, I thought it was a towel too, who was walking around with a black cloth of some sort over there like this. You couldn't see it. I don't have a cloth to put over there. I saw that individual with the gentleman standing next to me. By the way, the gentleman standing next to me for most of the time I was downtown was police and fire chaplain, Father Chris Rowe. You all know Father Chris, don't you? I saw that man apparently before the mayor and the police contingent he was with saw him. I read an article that he had been pulled over. And I turned to Father Chris and I said, look at that guy. Look how he's holding his hand. He's got a towel over his hand, a black towel. I said, do you think he's got a gun? And Father Chris is like, I don't know for sure, but I mean, that looks odd. I followed him into the crowd. Then I lost him for a second. And then I saw him come back out, still holding his hand that way. And several in the crowd came towards a couple of cars that had stopped. And during the course of whatever they were saying, an interaction that was occurring, he raised his hands up, the towel flipped back, and I saw he had nothing in his hands. So I didn't report it. Had I not seen that, I would have reported that too. And the entire 4 hours that I was down there, it was one event after another, like the frozen orange, the frozen bottle. My car got hit with a frozen bottle when I first arrived down there. I got a dent in my wife's trunk. Let me tell you something. A frozen bottle has the consistency of a brick. So let's not downplay throwing water bottles. Even an unfrozen water bottle probably doesn't feel good if it hits you in the head. I've never had that happen. But a frozen bottle is like a brick. A frozen orange is like a Major League Baseball. Those young men were looking at 2 police officers that were about 25 feet away from us, looking at an arrest that was occurring in the Speedway parking lot. Had I not been there, as a council member and leader of this community, maybe these kids would have made that youthful indiscretion and gotten one of those 2 officers in the back of the head with which was essentially a Major League Baseball. So yes, we should have been down there. I wasn't down there as a policing agent. Nobody from the council was. I was down there as your elected city councilman. I was down there out of concern for this community, north, south, east, and west. So moving forward, I look forward to looking back at what has happened, at the accusations that are flying, and having calmer heads prevail to give us the facts. And until I get those facts, I'll reserve my judgment. And I will definitely thank the police for their presence. Unlike Aurora, Naperville, Cicero, and Cicero tried to stop it. Our approach, as imperfect as it may be in some people's minds, kept it to a minimum. We got damage that I'm disturbed by, but not nearly as much as the damage. There was, I think, 2 police vehicles burned in Aurora that night. And even with 2 police vehicles burned, Aurora arrested, I think, 11 people, where we had 30 arrests. Our police took a proactive role in minimizing the damage that could have grown way farther out of control than it was. So again, if you weren't there, you can't fully appreciate what it was. You want me to give you a guesstimate? 75%, 25% may have been the spillover of peaceful protesters, like that young lady that came up to me asking for directions very nervously. 75% were rioters after 8 o'clock, after dusk. So that's my comments. And I agree, Councilwoman, we sincerely need, not just talk about coming together,
Yes.
actually coming together.
Let's do it.
Defending everybody and protecting all. Thank you, Mayor.
Let's do it.
I know it said that we weren't out May 23rd, but I was called over to Glenwood Manor. They had water all over the place, and I was called out over there, and that's where I went. So, you know, whoever's saying that I wasn't out, I was out. Also, I'd like to say great job to police and fire for the night of the 31st. I thought they did a great job. And also, I'd like to offer up my condolences to the Walsh family. Larry's done so much for so many people in Will County. He, you know, I'm proud to say he was my friend. He was my first campaign chairperson when I ran for the high school board. And he always offered up great political advice. And you know, I just want to offer my condolences to the family. He's going to be missed, and those are shoes that will never be filled. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I concur with most of what was said today, including the condolences to the Walsh family and to Larry. Larry, I think, was a mentor for most of us elected officials, so Larry will be missed, and may he rest in peace, and condolences to the family. Let's start with the tornado. I want to really commend Mike Ulitz and our street workers for their immediate response, living right in the heart of it. And Jan, I know you're right near me. As soon as the winds died down, neighbors and myself were in the street, unclogging drains. The people immediately took on to Rayner Avenue or the blocks around me with chainsaws, trying to get the trees out of the way so emergency vehicles could travel up and down the streets. There were people coming from all over to assist in that all afternoon, so I want to thank everybody involved. As far as our street department, they worked till 1 o'clock in the morning that night when they got called out. They were called back at 8 a.m. and worked all day Sunday, if you remember how hot and humid it was Sunday. An incredible effort by our personnel, very selfless to go out and do that. For what it's worth, I probably wouldn't have commented on this except for what happened the next weekend. After I was done cleaning up around my house and I had damage to a back fence and other parts of my house, I called one of the work crews and I threw my work boots on and I jumped in with a street department crew and assisted them in clearing off streets throughout the city. So I'll probably get criticized for doing that too. I guess maybe I could have slowed down the process somehow. But that again, as mayor, I was able-bodied. My house was secure and Joliet needed help, and I had no problem going in and doing manual labor and assisting our workers where I could. As far as what happened a week ago on Sunday, it's been said pretty well. I gave a press conference earlier. I spoke about it. I did answer some questions. Let me just give my quick synopsis and a couple of anecdotal stories to give residents an idea of what I saw. As has been said, Bettye and Larry, and I think Jan, the peaceful protesters were completely separate from what happened Sunday evening. When I was at both protests at some point, like you, Larry, innocuously. I was on my front porch when I got the call at 7:30 on Sunday that people were beginning to block the intersection of Jefferson and Larkin, and people were jumping on the hoods of cars that were stuck at the red light there. So I immediately got in my personal vehicle, traveled to the intersection. When I got there, there was a skirmish line set up. Rob Brown, Lieutenant Brown, appeared to take command. There was a crowd of protesters and a mass of people in the parking lot behind them. One of the ladies or women who had the bullhorn, who was leading the chants, at one point began yelling at people in the crowd to stop throwing things at our officers in the skirmish line. And was employing them, this is not what we're here for. These officers have done nothing wrong. They've been respectful all day. People in the crowd began yelling obscenities at the woman with the bullhorn. At one point, myself and the police chief spoke in that intersection with a man who claimed to be the leader of the protest. He had asked for us to allow the intersection to be shut down for 9 minutes for the protester to take to the intersection and commemorate the 9 minutes that the Minneapolis officer stood on the neck of George Floyd. While we were having that discussion, next to me, a Joliet police officer was hit in the face with a rock. And it digressed from there with basically the whole protest breaking up from there, mobs of people running back to their cars, and the riot began in Joliet. And it was a riot. Anyone calling those people after this broke up protesters is mistaken. And they clearly weren't there to see it for themselves. I got the call about protesters or rioters heading to the mall. In my personal vehicle, I drove to the mall. I saw the damage at Louis Joliet Mall and that those rioters were not able to gain entrance to the mall from the response of our police department. I went across Route 30 and saw the looters being arrested and handcuffed in the parking lot outside Target. I witnessed our officers do it professionally. Then I got the call to head to Ross Dress for Less and Marshalls. Again, I saw our police respond and arrest looters coming outside of Ross Dress for Less. They had already gained access to Marshalls. The next call I got was to go to the Walgreens at Ingalls and Larkin. I had there, again, saw people placed in custody for looting the Walgreens. At that point, really out of fear for damage to my own car, my car was parked and I jumped in a squad car of a veteran police officer who I worked with when I was a policeman. And I spent the next 5 hours all over our city with a Joliet police officer observing the police response, the great response downtown. I do want to commend, it was Officer Joe Clement that ordered the bridges up. There was the right call that was made. They were, again, at some point in the night, apparently ordered to be lowered. Officer Clement again ordered them up. There's no question in my mind that the plan was to draw our police resources west and for these people to descend on downtown Joliet and do what they did to Chicago or Naperville to our downtown, including burning down buildings like the Rialto. I don't think there's any question that was the intention. Because of the state police and the Will County Sheriffs and our Joliet police and Officer Clement, who is a hero, that was averted. So it all ended up on Jefferson Street. There's no sense describing it. I worked in public housing for most of the 10 years I was a policeman, back when Bettye, when the Hill was the Hill. And certainly the projects going up for grabs or a local riot was not uncommon. It happened frequently. But what I saw a week ago Sunday was unlike anything I've seen since I've been here in Joliet, including my 10 years as a Joliet police officer. I know every other veteran officer who I know has communicated the same thing who was out there that night. The two anecdotal stories I'll share, I won't give the name. I've spoken or have been emailed or contacted by thousands of our residents who have thanked me for what I did that night and thanked our police department for what they did that night. I was speaking with a business owner on Jefferson, one of the many business owners who very angrily expressed to me his frustration at the local newspapers' coverage of this, how they've tried to downplay the events that happened that night and how they've tried to attack me. He, at one point, he had an AR-15. He had two other people in his facility with long guns. When the rioters made it to his parking lot, they had a standoff in the parking lot where they were pointing their long weapons, long guns, at the rioters to save his own business. These are scenes you saw in 1992 in Los Angeles. This was happening on Jefferson Street that night. A couple days ago, I had an 83-year-old gentleman come into City Hall to speak with me. He came into my office. And as he began telling his story, he began to cry in my office. This man was in the Jewel parking lot on Jefferson Street. And again, 83 years old. He was running an errand for his wife, was leaving the Jewel parking lot. He said a subject dressed in all black ran up to his car pointing a pistol at him. He said the subject said something to him that he couldn't understand. He responded, "Leave me alone, get out of here," began pulling out. He said he heard an explosion. He reported to the police. Nothing was found. The next day, he found a bullet inside his car. This 83-year-old was shot at for no reason as he was pulling out a Jewel. The bullet went through his wheel well. The round was recovered in his car. He said about an inch from killing him. The man broke down and started crying in my office. So, for anybody to question what was happening from the police or from the elected officials that chose to do their job and show up that night, they're sadly mistaken. They should have been there. They should have seen what I saw. They should talk to the people who witnessed it. And it is an absolute miracle that no one was killed. we're talking about frozen oranges and frozen water bottles. There was more gunfire in that night than I may have heard in a month in Iraq when I was there for 20 months. Gunfire all over. There are Joliet police officers that reported subjects drove by and shot at them. No vehicle description, no apprehension. I don't know how someone wasn't killed. And God forbid, if this comes back to our city, there will be dead people next time. So, I just, I've said a lot, and there's really nothing more to say other than this. I was proud to stand with our women and men of the police department, the fire department. I was proud to try to talk to people early in the night. It was possible to talk to some people. As it really spiraled out of control, the chaos was out of control. It wasn't possible. But early in the night, I urged many people. Some recognized me as the mayor. I urged them to go home, get out of there. There was one woman whose son was about to be arrested in the Target parking lot. She showed up in a minivan, it's about 14 or 15 years old, and jumped down and started yelling, "That's my son, that's my son." And I had an exchange with her, urging her to take her son and go home and not participate in this. So, but again, for every police officer and firefighter that was there, I would like the names. Our chief isn't in the room, but he can hear me. Our fire chief and police chief, I'd like the name of every officer involved, many of whom came out. They were not scheduled to work. They came out on their own accord. Some of whom, and I'll let them say their names, are not putting in for overtime for the work they did that night. They were here in a sense of duty. But every single one of them, I am going to personally nominate for the Medal of Valor. I'm not sure what the fire department equivalent is, but they deserve it. And I just want to stress that how much worse it could have been if it weren't for the aggressive stance taken by our city, by our police and fire department. So that's all I want to say about that at this time. There'll be more to say in the future.
Mayor, can I just add a couple of things to that subject?
Yes.
Where we were standing or stationed, if you would, was not far from the Speedway, and across the street is the subway. And you're right, there was a couple of individuals who fired 6 shots right across the street from us. They were ultimately caught because of the bridges being up. They were caught down by the Jefferson Street Bridge. And then what I would add to that is, in addition to the thanks to our police officers and our police force and our citizens and the peaceful protesters, thank you for trying to counter what the rioters and looters were doing. We also need to thank Shanahan, who sent officers up here. Plainfield sent one. Romeoville sent one. Crest Hill sent one. There was a special multi-police agency. Ilias sent their crew here. And then, of course, state and county. So I do want to get that on the record, too, that they had come and help their neighbors.
You're right. Thank you for clearing that up. So, with the negative, what positive came out of this? I could see 2 things that were positive. Number one, I've met, although I think some are angry with me, I've met what appear to be a crop of new leaders coming up in Joliet. People that are involved in this. Councilman Gavin, you spoke about it, that are getting active and are having their voices heard. So I do commend those people. I think, I always say passing the torch is necessary, but none of us are young on this council. And that there's younger people in our community that are getting involved and want to see social justice in Joliet and are going to fight for it is a very positive thing. The other thing, and Councilman Morris, we talked about this, and it's been out there for a while. I don't know exactly how it can be done. I spoke with the legal department, but there are changes coming all over the country, and changes coming to Joliet. The idea of a citizens review board has been put forward again. I know there's different ways that this can be done, and there certainly are contracts that deal with discipline for our officers, or potential discipline, or how it's reviewed. So I'm going to task our legal department to begin looking into the different formats that this type of board is conducted in other communities, and eventually to present that. I would suppose to the legislative committee would be the appropriate place to go, but I think we need to take a long look at that, along with other things. But I think that's one idea that has been on the table for some time. Other communities do it in different formats. I'd like to see what the options are as we review it going forward. So that's the comments I have for tonight. I do want to thank all the people of Joliet, and I'm embarrassed that I became a focal point in this, because that was not the role I was trying to portray that night. But thank you to everyone who reached out to me and all the well-wishers. And with that, I think we need an executive session.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just one follow-up comment. Everybody handles things differently. And, the night of the storm, I was out. Maybe somebody didn't see me in the Western Avenue area, but does that mean I wasn't out? No, I don't broadcast it. I was in, after I got my generator running, I checked on a couple of my neighbors. I was called over to Twin Oaks West. I was over at the Mayfield, Taylor, that area. I was over in that area. The night of the incident, I was down on downtown Joliet with when the protesters or the rioters started, and I was coming up Jefferson. The farthest I could get was McDonald's, and McDonald's parking lot was closed off. So I said, well, I wonder why they closed it off, and here it was because they had seal coated their driveway. I'm sure you guys saw that. But to say that, and I know other people were out too, but to say that some of us, because we weren't seen, weren't out, I think is irresponsible. I mean, just because I wasn't standing where somebody could see me, I was still doing, in my mind, what I thought was correct, and I think most other council people did too.
Exactly.
So, but somebody to call in and say that because I wasn't at this person's house, I wasn't home drinking my favorite beverage, I'll tell you that.
Is there a
You are the last party in the conference. You will hear silence until the conference begins.
Can I make a comment? I don't know if I got skipped over.
I'm sorry, did I miss you? I apologize.
I think Councilman Hug took up my time, but I'm gonna be real brief. I just want to say, we have a lot of work to do, and I just like to challenge my colleagues on the council, and as the mayor said, we've had some conversations to really listen to what the people is saying.
Yes.
And we have to act on it. I know it may take some time for legal, to come back with an ordinance, or if possible, what we need to do with review board and other things that the people has been asking for, or a longing for some time now, for years. And again, as Councilwoman Gavin pointed out, and even Councilman Hug, we need to pray.
Yes.
As a city, for the world, but especially for Joliet. We have a wonderful city here made up of wonderful people. But again, we have a lot of work to do, and we need to listen to our constituents. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We did a prayer vigil last Saturday at 1 o'clock on the corner. We're going to do it for the next 3 weekends, so I would urge anyone from the council, from the public, to come out and pray as a community for peace in our nation and in the city of Joliet. Thank you.
Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance, pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman. Aye. Motion carried.